Welcome back to Murder on Record, where every case is etched in blood and the truth is buried in the fine print. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we dig through the dusty files, the overlooked evidence, and the whispered testimonies to bring long-forgotten crimes back into the light.
Today we're diving into a really harrowing case.
Yeah, truly disturbing. It happened back on May 30th, 2009, down in Arivaca, Arizona. A home invasion targeting Raul Flores Jr., his wife Gina Gonzalez, and, tragically, their 9-year-old daughter, Brisenia Flores.
And this one, it's not just about the crime itself, horrific as it was. It really pulls back the curtain on the whole border vigilante scene at the time.
Right, the extremism involved and the terrible human cost. We've been looking through public records, trial documents. They paint a pretty stark picture.
Very stark.
So our goal today is to really unpack what happened. We need to talk about the key people. Shawna Forde, who led this Minuteman group.
Minute American Defense, or MAD, yeah.
And Jason Gunnybush, the man who actually committed the murders. And of course, Gina Gonzalez, the survivor, whose bravery was just unbelievable.
Absolutely central to the whole thing. Her actions, her testimony.
Exactly. So we want to go beyond just listing facts. We need to explore the why, the motivations, the context of these vigilante groups, and maybe touch on some questions that still feel a bit unresolved.
Sounds good. So where do we start? The night itself. May 30th, 2009.
Yeah, let's set the scene. From what the sources indicate, this wasn't just a random break-in. They came prepared, posing as law enforcement.
Right, that was the pretext. Forde, Bush, and another associate, Albert Gaxiola, they pretended to be officers. They were specifically targeting Raul Flores Jr.
Based on what?
Well, based on these rumors, completely unsubstantiated, it turned out that he was involved in drug trafficking.
So the idea was robbery, to fund the group.
Precisely. Forde seemed to believe they'd find a load of cash or drugs, something they could seize to finance MD's operation.
But they didn't find anything like that, did they?
No. And that seems to be when things went from bad to horrific incredibly quickly. The situation just escalated into extreme violence.
Raul Flores Jr. was killed. Gina Gonzalez shot multiple times.
And then Brisenia, their 9-year-old daughter.
God, it's just hard to even say. The details are brutal. Found on the couch.
With her puppy, yes. And the accounts say she actually pleaded for her life.
Begged him not to shoot. And Bush, he shot her anyway.
Shot her in the face at close range. It speaks volumes about the callousness involved.
Utter brutality. But amidst all that horror, Gina Gonzalez, her survival instinct kicked in.
In an unbelievable way. Shot 3 times herself, remember? She pretended to be dead.
Just lay there.
Lay there. And then, when the intruders came back into the room, she somehow managed to get hold of her husband's handgun, and she fought back. Actually got into a shootout with him.
Are you serious? After being shot multiple times?
Yes. And she hit Jason Bush. Wounded him. That's apparently what made them finally flee.
That's just incredible courage. And then the 911 call?
Oh, that call is chilling. You can hear the terror, but also the fight in her voice. She'd say, "They're coming back in. They're coming back in." And you can apparently hear gunfire.
It gives you goosebumps just thinking about it, what she must have gone through.
And her determination, even then, to survive, to report what was happening.
So let's talk about these perpetrators. Shawna Forde, she was the leader.
Yes, leader of Minuteman American Defense. And the sources suggest this wasn't her first brush with violence. There was mention of a past incident, a near-fatal assault back in Washington state.
That she wasn't charged for.
Evaded charges is how it's put. So a pattern, perhaps, not just some sudden snap.
And Jason Bush, the shooter.
He was described as Maddie's operations director. His background is pretty grim, too. White supremacist connections, a prior murder charge on his record.
And the sources confirm he was the one who shot Raul, Gina, and Brisenia.
Yes, the accounts are clear on that. He inflicted all the gunshot wounds.
And there was a third person, Gaxiola.
Albert Gaxiola. He was apparently a local MAD associate. His alleged role was more the planning, scooping out the Flores home beforehand.
Okay, so how did the investigation link them? Especially Forde.
A key piece was physical evidence. Jewelry, taken from Gina's bedroom during the invasion.
And they found it.
Investigators found it later in Shawna Forde's purse. A very direct link.
Wow, that's damning. Along with Gina's testimony, obviously.
Absolutely crucial. Her eyewitness account, identifying them, plus that incredibly powerful 911 call, that formed the core of the prosecution's case.
And ballistics, I assume? Matching the weapon.
Exactly. Ballistics tied the weapon used in the shootings directly to Jason Bush.
Now, there was another MAD member involved after the fact, wasn't there? Someone who helped Bush.
Right, Chuck Stonex,
Yeah.
another member of the group. Bush went to him after the shootout because he'd been wounded by Gina.
And Stonex treated the wound.
He did. But later, Stonex decided to cooperate with the authorities. He became a key prosecution witness.
That must have been a major blow to the defense.
Undoubtedly. Having someone from inside the group testify against them.
So the arrests followed pretty quickly.
Forde was arrested June 12, 2009, just a couple of weeks later. The trial moved forward, and by February 2011, she was convicted.
First-degree murder.
Yes, for all three.
Yeah.
And the jury recommended the death penalty.
Were there appeals?
Oh, yes, there were appeals. Issues raised about pretrial publicity, even questions about her mental state at the time. But the Arizona Supreme Court looked at it all, and in 2014, they upheld the conviction and the death sentence.
Okay, so let's circle back to the why, the motive. It really was just about money for the group.
That seems to be the primary driver identified in the sources. Forde's plan was literally to fund MAD by robbing people they suspected wrongly, in this case of being drug dealers.
It ties the crime directly to that whole anti-immigrant extremist ideology, doesn't it? Using crime to fund their cause.
Absolutely. It wasn't just a robbery gone wrong. It was a robbery planned because of their extremist views to further those views.
And this happened at a time when the Minuteman movement was pretty visible, pretty controversial.
Very much so. The case really highlighted the racist undertones that critics pointed to within the movement. It wasn't long before this that President George W. Bush had called groups like these vigilantes.
That label certainly seemed to fit here, operating completely outside the law with deadly consequences.
And tragically, it seems Persinia's murder became a real focal point.
How so?
It just crystallized the horror for a lot of people. The image of this innocent 9-year-old girl being killed so brutally, it really seemed to damage the public image of these border militias. Sources suggest it contributed to their decline in influence after 2010.
A terrible catalyst, but maybe it forced a reckoning of sorts.
Perhaps. It put a very human, very tragic face on the potential outcomes of that kind of vigilantism.
Now, you mentioned lingering questions. What sort of things do the sources hint at being unresolved?
Well, one area is the connection, or potential connections, between Forde and other, maybe more prominent Minuteman leaders. Someone like Jim Gilchrist is mentioned by name.
He was a well-known figure in that movement, right?
Yeah, quite visible.
Yeah.
The question is, how much did people like him know about Forde's methods, her plans? Was MAD operating in a vacuum, or was there some level of awareness, maybe even tacit approval, from higher up in the broader movement?
So, wondering if this violent plan was just Forde's rogue operation, or if it reflected something deeper within those circles.
Exactly. Did others know she was planning armed robberies? Did they suspect the potential for violence, or did they just turn a blind eye? The sources suggest those links, and the level of support aren't fully clear.
It makes you think about the internal dynamics of groups like that. Who knew what, when?
It remains a bit murky, it seems.
And throughout all this, we have to keep coming back to Gina Gonzalez. Her experience. It's just central.
Absolutely. She's not just a victim in this story. She's a survivor, a fighter. Her bravery that night is one thing, but then her strength to go through the investigation, the trial.
Case them in court. Provide that crucial testimony. It's extraordinary fortitude.
And when you think about it in the context we've been discussing, her experience really throws the failure to maybe effectively curb these vigilante groups into sharp relief.
How do you mean?
Well, her ordeal is the direct human consequence of that extremist ideology being allowed to fester and turn violent. It raises questions, doesn't it, about whether more could have or should have been done systemically before it reached that point.
Yeah, it puts a very real face on the danger. You hear that 911 call, you read her account. It's not abstract anymore. It's real terror, real loss.
It hammers home the devastating impact of hate-fueled extremism. It's not just rhetoric. It has tangible, tragic consequences.
So summing up this deep dive, it's a case marked by just shocking brutality.
Driven by this toxic mix of anti-immigrant extremism and a plan to fund it through violent crime.
With the survivor, Gina Gonzalez, playing an absolutely pivotal role through her incredible courage and testimony.
And yet, these questions still hover about the broader network, the extent of awareness or support within the movement.
But ultimately, the memory that sticks is the senseless loss of Shawna Forde, 9 years old.
A heartbreaking symbol of the human cost. It really underscores the dangers when extremist beliefs go unchecked and spill over into violence.
But chilling reminder indeed. We need to be aware of these ideologies and the devastation they can cause.
Vigilance is key. Understanding the roots and remembering the victims.
Until next time, stay curious and keep your eyes on the evidence.